Okay, hello everyone. My name is Casper. In this video, I'm going to be doing a chart reading for Elliot Rodger, who is the infamous school shooter of Isla Vista, California. And the chart that I have right here has a Rodden, is that Rodden rating? Yeah, Rodden rating of C. So I think his date of birth is right. It's his time of birth that could be off. So I think I'm going to ignore the houses, and that's fine. I think the houses are kind of. They're not that important. I think I can squeeze a lot of good, juicy information out of this, even without the houses. But I do think, uh, with given his facial features, I do believe that he would have an ascendant in Leo. Like it's not a bad guess for what kind of rising sign he would have. So, and given how for this chart the ascendant is conjunct Regulus, which is like the kingly fixed star, that would make a lot of sense because Elliot Rodger was a very privileged. He had a very privileged life. His father was a co-director of the Hunger Games. Uh, it seemed like money wasn't really much of a problem for him. So it would make sense that he would have uh, a Leo ascendant, in my opinion. So I think the first thing about his chart that I find to be so interesting is that he has his sun in Leo conjunct Chiron, making an opposition to Saturn. So I've read his manifesto, and there's a lot of like "woe is me" kind of tone to it. Like it's a very depressing, very selfish and narcissistic. Like he's a very like you can see with like this loaded first house, or not even just the first house, but like this loaded Leo energy. I mean, Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, and Chiron. I mean, this is someone who, right? Because Leo is a very kingly sign. It's all about me, right? So this person definitely thinks about himself a lot, looks at himself a lot, values himself a lot, right? Like, especially with Jupiter here, like, this is someone who wants to live big. This is someone who has a big heart. This is someone who wants to really to live the best life that they can. But this Chiron here is making that like impossible. And I feel really bad for him. Like I can really see the pain that he felt by looking at his chart. And uh, Chiron, it's kind of interesting. A lot of astrologers tend to ignore Chiron or don't focus on it, but Chiron is a big deal. Chiron has a huge, overwhelming influence. I've known quite a few people who have Chiron conjunct their sun, and they're very hurt people, which, it makes sense because your sun is like your vitality and your ego. So every time you express yourself, Chiron is thwarting that. Chiron represents your wounds. So it's like when this person tries to be who they are, it's painful. It's painful to be them. And what's interesting about Chiron is that there needs to be a lot of healing and a lot of like accepting the wounds and accepting the pain. And when I was reading his manifesto, it's like, man, this person just seems really sad and really lonely, and you can really see it with that sun conjunct Chiron. And um he also has his sun opposite Saturn. So like, and Saturn is this very cold, restrictive energy. Sometimes it can represent your father figure, especially when it makes an aspect to the sun. It's like a mismanagement of authority, and especially because Saturn is in Aquarius. So Saturn is like super, super strong. It's almost like Elliot Rodger's father was a cold figure in his life. Like his father just wasn't very loving of him. Whether that's true or not, after reading his manifesto, uh, Elliot Rodger definitely did not feel very connected, or I don't know. Like you could definitely tell, like his father was a big obstacle in his life, and it contributed or made it really hard to be himself with the Sun conjunct Chiron. Basically, this is someone who's really trying to be a Leo, right? Someone who is meant to shine, someone who's meant to live a really great, happy life, because that's what Leo is all about. Leo is about living life to the fullest, but he can't because of this Chiron and Saturn. Like, it's just like weighing him down, and it hurts to express this Leo energy. And it's really interesting because Leos are very dramatic and they're very full of themselves and they're egotistical, but it's almost like he's really shy about it, right? He's dramatic about it, but at the same time he's very shy and very subdued because of these energies. And you can definitely see that in his manifesto. Like in school, he never talked to anyone. He wasn't very social, but he had a strong influence, a very powerful influence. And this Leo energy is making a square to his Pluto in Scorpio, especially Jupiter. Jupiter is making an almost direct square to Pluto in Scorpio. And when I think of Leo and Scorpio and a square, I think of very like melodramatic, like very deep feelings, like like a festering volcano that's waiting to explode. I always think of Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker when I think of Leo and Scorpio. And it's funny because uh, Anakin Skywalker is very similar to Elliot Rodger. I mean, they both talk about how it's not fair. Like, I hear that so often between them. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair. You know, like that Leo kind of like, I'm so amazing. I deserve so much better than this. And yet the world isn't letting me move forward. And you see so much of that with Leo and Scorpio, especially because his Pluto is uh, conjunct his IC. It's in his fourth house. It's like deep down inside in his roots. He has this very chaotic, intense energy. And his natural sense of self is to be this Leo. And so he's dealing with a lot of these really strong, jealous emotions, like lots of jealousy with Leo and Scorpio. I think that's really interesting. And then, of course, he's an involuntary celibate. And you can totally see this in his chart because he has Mars and Venus conjunct in Virgo. And he also has his moon in Capricorn. And if you look at a man's chart, you can tell a lot about their relation to women and how they feel about women if you look at their Venus and their moon. And Elliot Rodger's Venus and moon are debilitated. They're in really poor zodiac signs because it's not that Virgo and Capricorn are bad zodiac signs. It's my freaking keyboard. It's that Venus doesn't do well in Virgo because Venus is about our relationships. Venus is about how we relate to other people. It's how we enjoy pleasure. And Virgo is a very critical, analytical, logical sign, which makes it really hard to enjoy your relationships, right? It's not, right? Virgo is very critical. It's very logical, right? It's not a sign that's meant for unifying and connecting things. It's not a sign of relationships and self-love. Venus is also have a lot to do with self-love. So like this Venus in Virgo is like he probably feels overly judged by women. He probably feels like he can't express himself about women with women. He probably felt very just like women are cold and mean. Like you can really see that in his chart. And he also has Mars conjunct his Venus. And when Mars and Venus come together in a conjunction, it's someone who is very magnetic and someone who takes sex very, very seriously. Because Venus is what you love and what you enjoy. And if it's touching Mars, Mars is the planet of sex, aggression. It's the planet of anger. So there's a lot of anger in his relationships. There's a lot of violent energy in his relationships, right? Because Venus, which is this very pleasant planet about relating with people, is just suddenly it's very violent and it's very angry right? And you can see this. Like, of course, he would be a shooter, especially of women. Like, you can directly see this in his chart. And it's not like all Mars Venus people um, are violent towards women, but they're much more aggressive and they're much more obsessive. And Mars is the planet of sex, right? And Venus is what you love. So when Venus and Mars come together, it's like this person loves sex. This person has trouble with not getting enough sex. Like, they want sex right now. They're very right. And Mars is going after what you want, and Venus is your desires. So it's like this person demands things like right now. He wants them right now. And because Venus is in such a hard place in his chart, especially because he has a day chart. Well, actually, does he have a day chart or a night chart? He has a day chart because the sun is above his ascendant. So Mars and Venus they don't do well in day charts. Saturn and Jupiter do well in day charts. While Mars and Venus do poorly in day charts, or they don't do so well. So like, this is a really difficult placement to deal with because he has this really strong sexual energy, but he doesn't know how to express it. He doesn't know how to control it, right? He can't regulate it. And this moon in Capricorn, even though it's a trine, it's almost like this moon in Capricorn is fueling it or adding more to the fire, because moon in Capricorn, I always think of moon and Capricorn people as edgelords or people who take themselves way too seriously. I mean, sun in Capricorns and rising Capricorns, they take themselves seriously, but it's more of kind of like a persona or what they project outward. While moon and Capricorn, like, this is what they feel, right? Like, they need the power, they need the authority. And again, the moon doesn't do well in Capricorn, right? Like, there's a lot of like robotic emotions, like wanting to be powerful, wanting to feel in control, wanting to feel, I think it's funny how Elliot Rodger saw himself as like a gentleman or sophisticated, because a lot of Capricorns do see themselves as sophisticated, and they genuinely are. They genuinely are respectful. They value respect. They value punctuality. Even and this could also explain like a lot of his shyness, because Capricorn tends to be a shy sign. It's a very authority driven sign, but it's also kind of shy. And I also think it's interesting that, I don't want to attack or demonize his parents too much, but his motherly figure probably didn't express enough love to him. Maybe it gave him too many material stuff instead of loving energy, because Capricorn is a very materialistic sign. It's not a motherly sign. And so I feel like his parents were very cold and very distant. Like, they gave him a lot of stuff, but they didn't really give him a lot of love. And Leos need love. Like, Leos need to feel seen and they need to feel valued. And I get the sense, like, when I read his chart, like, it's like, I don't think he was lying in his manifesto. Like, he truly was a very lonely and miserable person. Like, this lonely king that was misunderstood or overlooked. And I'm not saying Elliot Rodger was a good person. I'm not trying to, say like, oh, it wasn't his fault. Like, he made a bad choice. He made a really poor choice, right? He demonized women and took out his violent tendencies on women. But it's very interesting how you can see that dynamic in his chart. Like, you see a really strong emotional fixation on getting his sexual desires met. And then you see this very dramatic Leo energy that is very woe is me at the same time because of that Chiron. And Saturn making harsh aspects to his sun. And that Jupiter just blows it up, especially that Jupiter is kind of like, because it's making an aspect to Pluto, and Pluto being in Scorpio, right? You see lots of jealousy. It's especially because he grew up in Hollywood, right? Well, not Hollywood, but he grew up in a very privileged place, and it's almost like, and Jupiter kind of expands this Leo energy. So like, it's almost like he kind of lived in this glamorous life. Like, there were a lot of opportunities around him, but because there were so many good things happening around him, he became very jealous of it. Like, it's almost like he would have done better growing up in a poor place, or growing up in a place that wasn't prosperous, because then that Jupiter energy wouldn't expand all of these, like, all of this wonderful energy that surrounded him. I think his chart is really fascinating, so interesting. The Sun conjunct Chiron is the main thing, especially if he has a Leo ascendant. That means the Sun is the ruler of his chart, and so, like, the main thing is that he can't. He just, it feels like he can't be loved.